Great, super. Well, my name's Ellie Moore. I am Director of Grantmaking and Strategic Communications here at the Community Foundation. And before we get going, I want to make sure that I introduce my team. So Shelly, if you want to do a quick intro to everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shelly Meharry. I'm the CEO of the Community Foundation. Thanks so much for joining us today.
And Cassie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cassie. I'm the Administrative Coordinator at the CFJC. Nice to see you all.
Perfect. And we will do intros a little later on. So we will get to know all of you as well. Quick start. Wanted to walk through the agenda, let you know kind of what's on the docket for the next hour-ish. We will go through some introductions. We'll do just a little brief fundraising overview. I think we've got a couple board members on. So not a whole lot, but we'll go into a little bit about fundraising in general. Walk through the role of the board in fundraising. Talk about ways to engage your board in fundraising, probably the reason most of you hopped on. And then just a little bit about overhead and what operating costs look like and how to have that conversation with your board. And then we'll have some time for Q&A. But as we go through, if you do have questions, feel free to unmute, ask throughout. And I think Cassie will be monitoring the chat for us. So if you have something you want to throw in the chat, that works great too. All right, let's get moving. And I apologize in advance. I have two screens, so if I'm not looking at you, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my other screen. So this is me. I'm Ellie Moore. I already introduced myself a little bit, but wanted to give you kind of a little reason of why I might be the one talking to you about this. So number one, because I think it's important, and I think we should all be talking about getting our boards engaged in fundraising. But also I serve as board chair for Girls in the Run of Eastern Iowa, and I also am a board member for the Iowa Children's Museum. So a little bit of board experience, not a lot, but enough to know that board fundraising is important and is one of our roles as board members. So if you don't mind introducing yourselves, we'll give you just a couple minutes here in the chat. I would love for you to put name, organization that you are representing today, your role with that organization. So you might be a board member, you might be a donor. If you're on staff, what that role looks like. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, staff members, how comfortable do you think your board is with fundraising? And board members, how comfortable are you individually fundraising for your organization? So we'll give you just a couple minutes to throw those in the chat. Let us know who's on the call. And I did include the pain scale there for you as a little bit of a joke. Hopefully fundraising is not painful for your boards, but I know that it can be for some folks. Hi, Abby. Thanks for joining us. John's board's about a 6. Eric's about a 6. A little over half is good. We like that. We see not quite as comfortable with fundraising. 6s, 7. Good stuff. 6. Most people are a little above half. That's great. Good deal. Looks like kind of all over the place for roles within your orgs. 3, 4. Super. 3, 4, yep. Sounds about right. Guys, yeah. Abby, you'll meet your board soon, I'm sure of it. All right. Super, so you can keep throwing those in there. That's just helpful for me to know kind of who's on and kind of where you think your board is at. Feel free to jump in with experiences and examples as I walk through some things if you have helpful information to share with the group. Every board's a little bit different and we know that, but it's good to kind of chat through those things together. So this is a safe space for you to do that. All right. We'll see if my slides will move for me. There we go. So I wanted to start with just a quick quote, get us kind of grounded in where we are with fundraising and how we're going to be talking about fundraising today. So really why I wanted to share this is because I don't think that fundraising is asking for money. Obviously, that's part of it, right? We do ask people for their money. But really what I think that we do is ask people to engage in our mission. So we're offering our donors opportunities. Yes, we want their money. We love when checks come through the door. But really, it's much bigger than that. It's a way for folks to engage with what we're doing, a way for them to learn about who we are, support our missions. And money is just one piece of that, right? It's just one way that we can do that work. So wanted to ground us in kind of that idea of fundraising as a whole lot more than just asking for money. All right. So really briefly, there are a lot of ways that we fundraise, right? You're all probably familiar with a lot of these. Some of them are a little more common than others, right? We all know about end of year campaigns, getting those mailers. Somehow at the end of the year, you get 9 every day in your mailbox. That's just someone asking you for a gift. But there's so much more than that, right? There's peer-to-peer fundraising, there's capital campaigns. You might do some social media things. Maybe you have a really great donor who provides matches, so you can do a match campaign. Lots and lots of ways to fundraise. And I wanted to bring that up specifically because that also means there's a lot of ways that your board can get engaged in fundraising. So maybe someone isn't great at writing. They're not going to be the person that sends those email asks out for you. But maybe their social media presence is huge. Use them, use that. Lots of ways for folks to be engaged. So kind of on that same vein, this is what we call the fundraising cycle. So it might look a little different. You might have seen it in a different graphic. You might see slightly different words, gratitude instead of stewardship, ask instead of solicit, but really it's pretty much the same across the board for every organization. We all follow this kind of cycle. We identify our donors, whether that's potential donors, current donors, past donors who might not be giving anymore. We all cultivate our donors, hopefully, build a relationship with them, learn who they are, why they engage with you, why they might want to engage with you if they haven't yet, and then solicit our donors, right? This is the ask. This is the, hey, we need your money. That piece is very important. We all know that, but really that piece only happens if we're doing the other pieces in the cycle. And then stewardship. So thanking our donors, recognizing them, making sure that we're continuing that relationship to be able to continue the cycle, keep cultivating that, solicit again. So that's the cycle. And again, there are places within this cycle for your board to engage at every step. So want to make sure we're thinking about all the ways that our board can be part of fundraising for us. So before we talk about how we fundraise and how our boards can be engaged, I want to talk a little bit about why. So this quote that's at the top is really kind of a good example of why we have our boards fundraise, because it works. Peers asking other peers, people they know, people in their networks to support a mission is the #1 way you're going to get new folks on board. It's great if someone has seen you on social media or hears about you in the news, but really that person-to-person connection is what builds strong donors that will keep coming back year after year, that will start volunteering for you, that may join your staff or be on your board. So that piece is a big reason you want your board to be engaged in your development work. Another reason is because it's their job. So we don't often think about our board being responsible for fundraising or development, but it is a big part of what they do, right? So your board is your governance structure. Your board has a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that your organization is financially healthy, stable, and sustainable. And so it is a piece of the work that they need to be doing. How that looks is different for every organization. How involved they are might be different for every organization. Your org may or may not have specific development staff. That changes the role of the board in development as well. But it is part of their job as a board member. And that's one thing you can work on as you introduce folks to your board, as you do your orientation, really driving home that it's important for your board to be part of fundraising, however that may look. The other piece of this is that it's easy for your board, right? They should be your biggest champions. They're on your board for a reason. They connected with your mission for a reason. Really what they need to do is just share that reason. Sharing the why of why they got engaged, why they support your mission is all they need to do to be able to fundraise effectively for you. They should be some really great fundraisers simply because they already have that buy-in. You don't have to convince them of that. And then the last kind of reason that board buy-in is important is that it's a really great example for your staff, a really great example for your volunteers, and also important for your stakeholders. So we'll talk in a little bit about board giving and the level of board giving that you have, but important to remember that if your board isn't giving, it's hard to ask someone else to be giving to. If your number one champions aren't supporting you financially, how do you ask someone else to do that? So we'll talk through that in a minute, but here's a big long list of ways that your board can be engaged in your fundraising, some roles they can have. And I did kind of go through and put what part of the cycle each of these pieces is in as a little reminder that they can be part of all of that cycle for you. So making a personal contribution, that's that 100% board giving rate, right? We can talk a little bit more if you want during Q&A about what that looks like for different organizations. But one thing I've seen quite a bit lately is having your board pledge 100% giving, but how that looks is a little different, right? So perhaps they're supposed to be in the top 3 orgs that they support that year. Perhaps it's, we want to be your number 1 org you support. We don't care the amount. Maybe you have a minimum amount, maybe you don't. We're trying to make it so it's equitable, right? We have folks on our boards who might not be as financially stable as others. That's totally fine. But a small gift is still a gift, still contributes to that 100% board giving. So that's one big piece. And then again, that kind of idea of how do other donors take you seriously if your champions, your board isn't supporting you financially. So Shelly had actually shared with our group, our staff, a little bit ago about a story that she had in a previous role. Actually, Shelly, do you want to just tell it? You pop back on.
Sure. Nope, I'm here. I'm just finishing up eating my lunch, so nobody wanted to see that. So before I joined the Community Foundation here in Johnson County, I was on the team at the Community Foundation of Greater Muscatine. And this story actually predates my time to really when the Community Foundation in Muscatine was just really getting off the ground and really starting. And there is a private foundation in Muscatine that was willing to kind of receive a proposal from the Community Foundation to support some capacity building for the Community Foundation. So they needed some new computers and some, equipment in the office to really get them going. And so they arranged this meeting, and the Community Foundation executive director and the board chair came to this meeting with the private foundation, which I'm just going to tell you, everybody knows it's the Carver Foundation in Muscatine, which lots of people know. Came to the meeting, sat down, and honest to goodness, the very first question that they asked them, after they kind of shared what they were needing is, do 100% of your board members give to your organization? And the answer at that time was no. And so the foundation said, well, when they do, you can come back and ask again. And that was it. That meeting ended. So having 100% board giving is a really powerful message. No matter the size of the gift, just having everyone involved really does matter. So thanks for letting me share that, Ellie.
Thank you for sharing that. And it'll be interesting to see if anyone else has had a similar experience. If you have, let us know. But yeah, definitely important to get your board involved in giving personally and as part of your fundraising. I'm wondering, is there anything on this list that you see on the screen that feels weird or odd or like something you've never heard of? The chat. No? They're all pretty standard ways to get your board involved. And I think a lot of the time, the hardest part for us is our staff needs to prepare a lot of these things for our board to be able to do them, right? It's not quite as simple as just saying, board, go do these things. We have to give them the tools to do that, right? So one of the pieces that I have coming up for you is a little resource to help you do that. So in just a few slides, we'll talk about kind of an easy way to update for your organization some of those tools and resources to be able to provide that to your board members so they can go out and do your fundraising. Alrighty. Another quote for you here. Yes, John, please do share that list with your boards. I just saw that in the chat. These slides and the recording will be up on our website after the fact, so you can send them out to your boards if you would like to do that. This little quote is another reminder, right, of connecting to the mission, connecting your board members to the work that you're doing, and sharing your story, right? Sharing what your staff is doing, what your clients experience through your programs, and making sure that your board is able to do that as well. So that leads us to how we engage our boards, the real reason you came today. So one really big piece of engaging your board in fundraising is that idea of giving them the tools to do that, right? So the first thing I have on the ways to engage list is really a staff way to engage with your boards, and that is sharing stories of your work. So whether that's 5 minutes at the beginning of the board meeting, 5 minutes at the end, an email once a month, an email once a quarter, a newsletter just for your board, whatever that looks like, sharing the work of your organization, especially current work, things that are happening, client stories, testimonials, things that have come through that they can then share with their networks, giving them some more to talk about, right? They might know your mission statement, they might have a little elevator pitch, but being able to update that so as they're continuing conversation with folks, they have more to say is really important. So that's a big piece. We're going to hit that 100% board giving again. That is really important. We're going to keep talking about it. So personal contribution, doing those relationship building exercises, introducing folks to you. And that can be as simple as, hey, I'm having coffee with a friend. Do you want to come along, staff member? And same the other way, right? If you are having a conversation with a potential new donor, a potential new volunteer, bring some of your board members along, have them come with you. Maybe those people already know each other. Maybe they don't. Maybe it's just another connection that you're making. But an easy way to do that is to just come alongside your board members or have them invite you alongside them. Special events, so that looks a little different for everyone, right? Some folks have specific fundraisers in person. You might have a gala, you might have just an awards for your volunteers that isn't a fundraiser, but getting your board to engage in those pieces is important. Peer-to-peer fundraising, so that might look a little different, right? That might be tied to a special event, some ticket sales, getting a table at an event, but it also could be as simple as doing a birthday Facebook fundraiser on their birthday, or even just sharing your links. And then stewardship, so donor thank you calls, handwritten thank yous, that can be as super simple. It can be as easy as having thank yous already filled out, bringing them to your board meeting and having board members just sign them. That's it. They just need to sign them. So super easy, lots of great, like quick one-off ways for your board to be engaged that doesn't feel like a lot on them or a lot of pressure. But you also can do bigger things, right? You can have a specific board giving goal. You can have a specific board get goal. So how much they might fundraise for you in a certain campaign in a certain time period, maybe just for the year. But tracking that and having some excitement around that is a good way to engage your board too. So some resources for you. Our board fundraising toolkit is in the next slide, and I'll shoot the link in the chat for it for you as well. But that's just a quick tool we'll give you. Blogs are a good way to get your board engaged. So if you have a blog that you really love, might be fundraising specific, might just be nonprofit in general. So a couple of our favorites are Vule's Nonprofit AF. Dawn Brown, so she's a community foundation person, does a lot of great marketing. She's got Dawn Brown Creative, that's a weekly blog. And then Joan Gary, who some of you may know, has a Helping the Helpers blog. The reason I say that you should get your board to engage with blogs is that it reminds them on a weekly basis what's going on in the nonprofit world, some ways to fundraise, ways to engage. Really, it's just another quick reminder without it having to be you sending emails every week that reminds them to check back in with your org, check back in with what's going on. And then Board Source is a great tool for your boards. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with that, but lots of free tools and resources for your boards there as well. And I did want to include another little fact about how important it is for your board to engage in stewardship and how much of an impact it really makes to do peer-to-peer solicitation and stewardship. So, board fundraising toolkit. This is just a little piece of a couple page document. I will shoot the link to it for you in the chat right now. So you have that. It's also available on our website under nonprofit resources. So on that page under education sessions, it lives there. And it will live there for quite a long time. So if you ever need to reference it, go ahead and look there for it or send me an email. But this is just a really simple tool. It's like a 2-page document that you can fill out and make your own, put in your organization's name, put in special events you have going on. If your board does have a giving goal, put that in there, put in all the campaigns you do, let them know when things are coming out, when's a great time to reach out to that donor. But just a super simple way for them to have a tangible piece of information that they can share with anyone they need to, right? Good reminders, you may not get as many emails then when they're like, oh, how do I make a Facebook fundraiser? What does that look like? That information's on the page. What a matching gift is, what that can look like is on there. Just kind of a document resource for you to be able to share with your board members so that they have some tools at their disposal to do some fundraising for you without you having to manage all of those pieces. Any questions on the toolkit itself? Let me check chat too. All right. Super. We're nearing the end. We've got some tips for success for you. The biggest thing for getting your board members to engage is making it easy for them, right? Doing things at your board meetings, sending things specifically as, here's a way to fundraise, without being kind of bogged down in the rest of the information you might be sending them. But also doing those things often, right? Putting it on your agenda. Hey, by the way, here's our direct fundraising link, share it out. Hey, we just did this post on Facebook. Will you share that? Those things are easy ways for your board to engage, and it really does make a difference and broadens who your information is going to. So those pieces, having phone and email templates ready for them. So that's in the toolkit as well. There's spaces to drop. Here is our general solicitation email. Send that out to 5 people this year. Thanks. And then again, that kind of come with me, right? So I'm having a coffee with someone this week. Eric, do you want to come with me? Maybe we can make that connection with that donor. Those pieces kind of working both ways, right? Staff to board and board to staff. Making it personal. So using inclusive language is always big, right? We, our, us, come join us, be part of this thing that we are doing together. That's a great way to just kind of open up your language always. Working on elevator pitches. Can your board share what you do with someone who doesn't know you at all? And are they comfortable doing that? Have you given them the tools to do that? So that also goes back to that sharing stories, right? Are you sharing the work that's going on? Are you sharing that really nice, warm, fuzzy story that they can then share with their friends, their family, their coworkers, and kind of move that story along? And offer direct links, right? So maybe you have a way to have each of your board members have a specific fundraising link for themselves. So it says my name on it. Then my friends and family are maybe more likely to click on that, right? If you're able to do that, offering direct links is a really great way to help them personalize their fundraising a little bit too. And offering options. So do you have different ways to receive money, right? Of course, we all do. But does your board know that? Do they know who we should write in the memo line? Who we should be sending this to, right? Do you have multiple offices? Which one should it be going to? Is there a Venmo? What does that link look like? Is there online giving? Where does that live on your website? Those are all things that your board should be familiar with. And then same for volunteer opportunities and special events, right? Do they know that those things are happening? Do they know how they can engage? Do they know how they can ask their friends to engage? Good reminders for just sharing information more broadly about the work that you're doing every day. And then this is my last little piece, because I think it's very important that we talk to our boards about this. And I think it's also kind of hard to do. So really, I just wanted to give you a little bit of information around operational support and overhead, right? Our sector often calls it overhead. But the idea that you need overhead to be effective, right? We need operational values. We have to have our lights on. We do need a printer. We do need to pay our rent. And that fundraising for those things isn't scary. It shouldn't be hard. We should be doing that. And potentially that's a great place for your board to be engaging, right? With their contributions. Maybe they're willing to give operational support dollars to you. But wanted to kind of share a couple of these pieces around what we look like when we talk about overhead, what that really means. One kind of issue with us talking about overhead in general as a sector is that it's really hard to have apples to apples comparisons of what overhead looks like from organization to organization. So your operational budgets are all incredibly different, right? Because the work that you're doing is different. Maybe your geographic area is a lot different. Some of you might be statewide organizations versus we serve our neighborhood block, right? That changes your expenses, that changes your operations, but it also changes your output and your outcomes. So really just kind of this idea of it's important for us to fund operational support, and it's important for us to be careful when we're talking about overhead, whether for our own organizations or other organizations, that we're making sure we're not comparing, right, directly with another organization. That's just not quite as equitable as we want it to be, even if it makes our organization look great. So that piece is just an important piece to remember when you're talking to your boards. Potentially it's part of your orientation process or your development meeting, making sure that they know what that looks like and how to talk to other people about that as well. Any questions on that piece? Okay. So just a couple of the takeaways for you. I want you to remember that fundraising isn't asking for money. It's offering opportunities for your community to support your mission. Your board members can engage in fundraising, and they should, and it's easy to do that. There's a lot of ways that can look. You should have 100% board giving, no matter what that amount is, no matter what that looks like. There should be ways for your board to engage in that, and you should make them have ways to do that that are easy. Give them those opportunities. And there are resources available to help you to fundraise and to help your boards to fundraise. And it shouldn't be that hard. You can do it. You can all do it. Your boards can do it. We believe in you. So those are the takeaways I want you to have from today. Any questions, comments?